I still remember the night my fiancée Lily and I went camping deep in the Pine forest. The plan was simple: escape the city noise, light a campfire, and share stories under the stars. It was supposed to be a sweet and peaceful trip, just us and nature. But things changed the moment we arrived. We found a small clearing surrounded by tall pine trees. The air smelled fresh, and I could hear birds singing somewhere above us. We set up our tent carefully, making sure the poles were secure. The sun was already dropping behind the tree line, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. After unpacking, we started a small fire. I watched Lily's face glow in the warm light. We laughed and roasted marshmallows, trying to guess the constellations above. It was wonderful, until a rustling sound broke the silence. At first, it was faint, like a slight movement in the undergrowth. I brushed it off, telling myself it was probably just the wind or a small animal. But as the night wore on, that sound returned, each time louder than before. My heart began to pound, my senses sharpened. Each snap of a twig made my breath catch in my throat. Lily grew uneasy, and I tried to act brave for both of us. I told her not to worry, that we were in the middle of nature and animals roamed freely. We decided to call it a night and crawled into our tent, zipping the entrance shut. Inside, it was dark and quiet, except for our breathing. I wished I could turn on a light, but I didn't want to attract any more attention than we already had. Outside, the wind started to pick up. It sounded like whispers in the dark. Minutes felt like hours. I thought I heard footsteps circling our tent, slow and deliberate. My mind raced. Could it be a deer? I wondered. But deer usually moved quickly. Whatever this was, it seemed to linger, almost observing us. With every step, the leaves crunched softly, building the tension in my chest. Lily grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. She whispered, "What is that?" I had no answer for her. I just pressed a finger to my lips, signaling her to be quiet. We stayed perfectly still, listening. My heart drummed louder than I thought possible. Finally, I decided I had to check. I unzipped the tent a tiny bit, peering out with my flashlight clutched in my shaking hand. The fire outside had died down, and the forest was pitch black. I swept the beam of light across the trees. Nothing. Everything was still. I held my breath, and for a moment I was certain the footsteps had just been my imagination. Suddenly, a sharp crack came from behind the tent. I swung the flashlight around, illuminating the dark shape of someone standing a few feet away. My stomach twisted into knots. I wanted to shout, but could barely breathe. Lily squeezed my arm so tight, I could feel her nails through my jacket. I froze, hardly able to breathe. The light from my flashlight revealed a man in a worn jacket. He stood completely still, as if he was just as surprised to see us. My heart pounded in my chest, and I wondered if I should speak or stay quiet. Lily's grip tightened on my arm, and I could feel her trembling. I forced myself to call out, "Who are you?" My voice shook, but I tried to sound confident. The man said nothing for a long moment. His eyes flicked from me to Lily, then back again. I noticed his hands were empty, no flashlight, no gear. It struck me as odd. Most hikers or campers carried something, even if only a water bottle or bag. He took one step closer, and my heart raced faster. I thought of telling Lily to run, but where would she go? We were in the middle of the forest, with no clear path except the one that led back to our car miles away. A light breeze carried the scent of pine needles and damp earth, and in that moment, I realized how truly alone we were. Finally, the man cleared his throat. I'm sorry," he said in a low voice. "I didn't mean to scare you. Are you two out here alone?" I didn't know if I should answer truthfully. Part of me worried this was a trap. Maybe there were more people hiding among the trees. I mustered what little courage I had and replied, "We're just camping. Can we help you?" In my mind, I was already thinking of ways to get Lily and me to safety. The stranger looked around nervously. "I'm lost," he said. "My car broke down, and I got turned around looking for a road." His story might have been true, but something about his body language put me on edge. Why had he crept up on us so quietly? Why not call out from a distance? Lily nudged me gently. "Maybe we should help," she whispered. I nodded, though I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in my stomach. I asked, "Where's your car?" He paused, his gaze shifting to the dark forest behind him. "Not far," he mumbled. "I just need directions back to the highway." I glanced at Lily. trying to read her expression in the thin beam of the flashlight. She looked worried, but determined to stay calm. If he truly needed help, we couldn't just turn him away. But a small voice in my head warned me to be careful. I gestured toward the dim fire pit. "Let's talk over here, where it's brighter." Carefully, we walked a few steps to the smoldering coals of our dying campfire. I stoked the embers, sending up a small wave of warmth and sparks. In that gentle glow, I studied the man's face. He had dark circles under his eyes, and he looked exhausted. But there was still something off. Lily offered him some water, and he drank greedily. "Thank you," he gasped. Then, for the first time, he smiled, a thin, shaky smile that didn't ease my nerves. We spoke in hushed tones, mostly about his supposed broken car and his search for the road. He claimed he had been wandering for hours. I asked why he had no flashlight or phone, and his face fell. "Phone died. Forgot my flashlight at home," he said. There was a flicker in his eyes that made me doubt him. Still, I tried to stay polite, but alert. As we talked, the woods around us felt heavier, as if something was listening. Leaves rustled with the wind, and the tall pines swayed overhead. My stomach knotted with tension, but I knew we had to make a decision. Help him or send him away. I stood up and pointed in the direction Lily and I had driven earlier that evening. "If you follow that path, you'll reach the highway eventually." He got up slowly, turning to look where I pointed. His shoulders seemed to relax for the first time. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Lily's bag was unzipped. A quick glance showed her wallet sticking out. My breath caught in my throat. Had he seen it too? My fingers curled into fists, and I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. Just as he was about to leave, the man paused. He looked at Lily. "You two be careful," he said, his voice steady. "Strange things happen out here, especially when people don't watch their surroundings." My pulse thundered in my ears. Was that a warning or a threat? He turned and walked off into the darkness without another word. We stood there, holding our breath until we could no longer hear his steps. I quickly checked our belongings. Nothing seemed missing, but the feeling of being watched wouldn't leave. Lily and I stared at each other, unsure of what to do next. Should we pack up and leave right away? Should we stay in the tent and wait until morning? The fire was nearly out, and I knew the night wouldn't be getting any brighter. My mind raced through every possibility, my heartbeat still unsteady. Finally, Lily broke the silence. "Maybe we should," she began, and in that moment, another sound cracked behind us, a single branch snapping underfoot. We both spun around. That's when we saw it, my heart hammering against my ribs. Lily gripped my arm, her nails digging in. Through the dim light of the dying campfire, I saw the stranger standing there once more. He was only a few steps away, staring at us. He looked different now, less tired, more alert. My breath caught in my throat. "Why are you back?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. My flashlight trembled in my hand. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at Lily's bag on the ground, then back at us. His expression was hard to read. Finally, he said, "I realized I might need a little more help." But there was something else in his eyes, something that made my blood run cold. Lily shifted uneasily. "I thought you just needed the road," she said. She tried to sound calm, but I could tell she was terrified. He stepped closer. "Yeah, well, turns out it's easier to have someone walk with me." He paused and lowered his voice. "Hand me your flashlight." My stomach twisted. This was no longer a polite request. I could sense the threat in his tone. I tightened my grip, refusing to let go. "Look," I said, swallowing hard. "We can all walk together if that's what you want, but you're not taking my flashlight." A tense silence fell between us. I could feel Lily trembling, though she stood firm by my side. The night seemed darker than before, the forest closing in around us. Then the stranger lunged. He grabbed at Lily's bag, yanking it from the ground. I reacted on pure instinct, swinging the flashlight toward his arm. The hard plastic struck flesh with a sickening thud. He winced, letting out a sharp hiss. Lily stumbled backward, and I lost my balance for a moment, nearly falling into the embers of the fire. By the time I regained my footing, the man had Lily's bag clutched against his chest. "Give it back!" I shouted, my voice echoing in the stillness. A flash of panic and anger surged through me. He glared at me, then took off into the darkness, weaving between the tall pines. My mind screamed at me to go after him, but my heart hammered with worry for Lily. I grabbed her trembling hand. "Are you okay?" She nodded, still in shock. I knew her wallet, phone, and our car keys were in that bag. We couldn't just stand there. We had to do something. Summoning what courage I had left, I whispered, "Stay close." Lily nodded, and we took off after him, our feet pounding against the forest floor. The narrow beam of my flashlight cut through the dark, revealing only swaying branches and drifting leaves. I listened for rustling movements, my heart racing. A crunch of leaves to the right caught my attention. I directed the light that way, and sure enough, I saw the man stumbling through the undergrowth. He glanced back when my flashlight hit him, his eyes wide with surprise. "Stop!" I shouted. But he kept running. I pushed through branches, trying not to lose sight of him. Lily stayed just a step behind me. My lungs burned from the chill of the night air and the sudden sprint. We hurdled a fallen log, my flashlight flickering in and out. Then the man tripped. He went down hard with a muffled cry. The bag flew out of his hands and landed with a soft thud. Lily and I skidded to a halt, panting. In the faint light, I saw him hunched over, clutching his leg. For a split second, I almost felt sorry for him, until he grabbed for Lily's bag again. I lunged and kicked the bag away from his reach. He let out a frustrated growl and tried to stand, but pain shot through him, forcing him back down. "Just leave me," he gritted, sweat beading on his forehead. His eyes darted around, fear mingling with anger. I picked up the bag and held Lily's hand. My voice trembled, but I managed, "We'll call for help, for you, once we're safe." The man glared, breathing heavily. "I don't need your help," he spat, but I could see uncertainty flicker in his eyes. He was hurt, stranded in the forest with no supplies. Without another word, Lily and I backed away. My flashlight was faint, but enough to guide us. We turned, hearts pounding, and made our way through the trees, stumbling back toward the campsite. Each rustle of leaves behind us made my skin prickle, but I kept going, determined to get to the car. By the time we reached our tent, we didn't speak. We gathered our gear in record time, shoving everything into backpacks. I was shaking so badly, it took me 3 tries to unzip the tent fully. Lily kept glancing over her shoulder, expecting the stranger to appear any second. Finally, we had everything packed. I led the way through the dark forest, using a shaky flashlight beam to follow the faint path we had arrived on earlier. Our boots crunched over gravel and leaves as we hurried along. The night seemed never-ending, every shadow a potential threat. Eventually, we reached the edge of the parking area where our car sat. Relief washed over us, and we practically dove into the vehicle. Lily fished out the keys from her bag with trembling hands, and I locked the doors the moment we were inside. As we sped away, the headlights carving a path through the forest, I couldn't shake the image of the stranger left behind in the darkness. My mind raced with questions. Who was he, really? Was he truly lost, or had he planned this all along? We might never know, but the important thing was that we were safe. Lily and I held hands the whole drive back, neither of us speaking. Our peaceful camping trip had turned into a nightmare, and the quiet hum of the car engine was the only thing that calmed my thudding heart. To this day, when I think about that night in Pineval Forest, my chest tightens. I still wonder if we should have done something differently. Maybe we should have walked away the moment he asked for the flashlight. Maybe we should have called for help sooner. All I know for certain is that the forest can hide many secrets, and sometimes a single choice can change everything. Even now, the memory sends a shiver through me, reminding me of how quickly fear can replace peace in the quiet heart of the woods. I had been sent to a small town in Colorado for work, and ended up finishing my project a whole day ahead of schedule. Since I rarely get the chance to explore, I decided to make the most of this unexpected free time. There was a popular hiking trail only 30 minutes away from my hotel, and I figured it would be a good way to enjoy the outdoors before heading home. The morning was cool, and the sun was just beginning to warm the valley. I stopped by a local store to pick up a few supplies, snacks, a bottle of water, and a small flashlight, just in case I ended up staying out later than planned. The drive to the trailhead felt peaceful, and when I arrived, there were only 2 other cars in the parking area. I signed in at the trail register and started walking. The path wound through tall pine trees, their thick branches filtering the sunlight. The first hour was pure bliss, just me, the rustling leaves, and the gentle sound of a stream somewhere in the distance. Eventually, I came to a clearing with a wooden bench, so I decided to rest and have a quick snack. That was when I first noticed a man standing just off the trail. He was partially hidden behind some trees, barely visible. At first, I thought he might be a photographer, or maybe just another hiker looking for birds. But the way he was watching me made me uneasy. When our eyes met, he quickly turned away and stepped deeper into the shadows of the woods. I brushed it off, telling myself I was just being jumpy. I continued down the trail for another hour, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. Every now and then, I glanced over my shoulder, imagining I heard soft footsteps behind me. My nerves were on edge, and I considered turning back. Still, the hike had been so pleasant, I convinced myself to push on until I reached a small waterfall the map had mentioned. When I finally reached the waterfall, I almost forgot my worries. It was a stunning view, cool mist rising off the water, surrounded by mossy rocks and tall trees. I stayed a few minutes, took some pictures, then decided it was time to head back. The shadows were starting to grow longer, and I didn't want to risk hiking after dark. On my way back, the forest felt different, quieter, darker, and more threatening. About halfway to my car, I heard leaves crunching behind me. I turned and saw the same man standing 20 feet away, staring at me. My heart pounded in my chest. I quickened my pace, hoping to get to the parking area as soon as possible. But he started following me, matching my speed. I tried to keep calm, reminding myself I had every right to be on this trail. I sped up even more, practically jogging, and now he was running too. Fear kicked in, and I began to sprint, ignoring the burning in my legs. Finally, I reached the edge of the parking area and spotted my car. The man was so close, I could hear his ragged breathing behind me. With shaking hands, I unlocked my car and threw myself inside. Before I could shut the door, he grabbed it, pulling it back open. We locked eyes for a terrifying second, and I could see something desperate in his gaze. Summoning all my strength, I yanked the door closed and hit the lock. He banged on the window, shouting something I couldn't make out. My heart hammered so loudly that everything else became a blur. I started the engine, tires kicking up gravel as I slammed the car into reverse. He chased me for a few steps, then stopped in the middle of the parking lot, staring as I sped away. My hands were shaking the entire drive back to the hotel, but relief washed over me once I finally parked. I went inside and immediately called the local police to report what happened. Even now, I can't forget the look in his eyes when he tried to grab that car door. I'm just thankful I managed to get away in time. My girlfriend, Clara, and I loved hiking in the Colorado Rockies. One Friday afternoon, we arrived at a remote trail called Silver Pine. We expected a tough 5-mile loop with a beautiful lake at the top. We did not expect a frightening trick. We parked our Jeep at the trailhead. We thought we were alone, but then we saw a silver SUV half hidden in the trees. Its doors were open. Inside, everything was a mess. Maps on the seats, a cooler tipped over, and a single hiking boot stuck under the brake pedal. There was no blood or sign of a fight, just an odd silence. We used our satellite phone to report the SUV to the Park Service. It seemed strange, but we decided to keep hiking. We joked that maybe the drivers had seen a bear and panicked. Still, I felt uneasy. The trail was very hard. Rain made the path slippery. By the time we reached the lake, it was almost dark. That's when we saw a tent by the shore. Rainwater collected on its top. A small lantern flickered inside. Clara called out, "Hello?" A man stepped out. He said his name was Dex. He mentioned that his friend Roy was looking for firewood. We could hear branches snapping nearby. Dex was strangely polite, but his eyes kept moving around like he was nervous. His clothes were clean and his boots had no mud on them, even though the trail was filthy. Clara quietly suggested we set up our own tent far away. A storm hit and the wind roared. Around midnight, Clara woke me up. She whispered that someone was outside. I peered out and saw Dex and Roy. They were arguing. Roy held a shovel and Dex gripped duct tape. We suddenly got a text on Clara's phone from Park Services. Silver SUV registered to Lauren M. Missing for 48 hours. A ranger is on the way. We decided not to wait. We left the campsite quickly. Twice, we heard footsteps behind us. Twice, we hid, barely breathing. On a switchback, Clara stopped. She saw a newly dug hole. Something silver glinted inside. Lauren's Colorado-shaped necklace. Clara whispered that Lauren was her coworker who wore that necklace every day. A branch snapped above us. Dex yelled, "You shouldn't have come here." We kept running until at around 2 p.m. we reached the trailhead, but our Jeep was gone. The silver SUV was gone too. We saw fresh tire tracks. Fear hit me hard. We ran along the access road until we saw headlights. It was a Park Service truck. A female ranger got out. She asked, "Are you the ones who reported the SUV?" We felt relieved. Clara explained that 2 men might have killed Lauren. The ranger's radio crackled with a male voice. "Found the Jeep. Tags are off." The ranger smiled in a way that made me shiver. She told us to get in the truck. Instead of taking us to safety, the ranger drove to an old ranger station deep in the woods. Inside, there were photos of missing hikers on the walls, including Lauren. Dex and Roy were there, laughing, and the ranger handed them money. They explained their plan. The SUV and the missing person story were fake. Dex and Roy pretended to be scary kidnappers, and the ranger would show up to rescue people. They charged huge fees for help. Lauren was never in danger. She was in Denver. The necklace was just a prop. But now we knew the truth. The ranger pointed a gun at us. Luckily, our satellite phone had been recording since we first saw the SUV. I tapped send on the phone while Clara screamed, hiding the noise of the click. Suddenly, we heard sirens. The ranger panicked and yelled at Dex to destroy the evidence. We managed to escape into the forest. Real police officers arrived soon after. The news called it the Colorado Rescue Racket. A group of former park workers had scared hikers into paying thousands of dollars for fake rescues. Lauren was fine, and she got her necklace back. Clara and I were safe, but left with terrible memories.